Mr. John Kabateck, welcome back to our virtual studio. I know you're traveling a lot, and it's been a crazy piece of time with the legislature. So thank you for your time, for coming back, and giving us a chance to learn about what's happening.
Thanks so much for having me back, Victor. Always great to see you. Always great to have a really great conversation, and good to see you.
Good to see you too, sir. Thank you very, very much. We always appreciate not just your time and you being present with us, but also all the valuable information, advice that you share with us. And since it's been a crazy amount of weeks in the legislature, you are the representation of the small business. What is new? What is happening? And what we are about to expect?
Yes, well, at the time that we're talking right now, we're towards the end of September, and the legislature adjourned at the end of August and pretty much sent anything that was remaining to the governor. This last two-year session, this is the end of a two-year legislative session, there were more than 5,000 bills introduced over 2 years. Of course, many have kind of perished. Many are moving forward. There's probably about 12 or 15 pieces of legislation that have kind of jumped out in terms of affecting small business. But Governor Newsom has until the end of September to sign or veto any legislation. If he fails to make a decision on any bills, they automatically become law. So a lot of things happening for small business, a lot of things happening for small communities, and certainly for Californians. So happy to talk to you about that.
We both know, and you probably are the most acknowledged person about the life of small businesses in California, and not only, because you also travel a lot to other states, and being an executive at an FIB is definitely a huge responsibility and probably a lot of stress. Let's begin with smaller details. From what you know, which bills that the governor has on his table are beneficial to small businesses, and which you believe are not, from what you know, from what you can remember now?
Well, I think it's probably good to start with the good stuff. Let's talk about some of the good. And you asked kind of what's hot right now, what's hot, what's not. If you were to ask me what issue has kind of been really the issue du jour for 2024, and I would even say some of last year and going into next year, that is public safety. We have seen our communities, many of them just really struggle with retail theft, residential theft, Victor. People's homes and, their front porches being burglarized, things escalating to bigger problems. So right now, I think what we've seen in terms of some good things on the governor's desk, and I really believe a commitment from him to get some good things done, bipartisan work done, some bipartisan bills done to help address retail theft. Certainly hold these criminals accountable, hold them accountable, make sure that that the district attorneys and sheriffs have the tools and the legal ability to take matters and hold these people accountable. So right now we're probably seeing about 6 or 7 bills on the governor's desk, many of them looking at ways to frankly hold these people accountable. I think the governor just recently did sign one that really makes it a crime for like cargo theft, where people have been jumping on these trains and they've been jumping on vehicles and taking things and reselling them. But that's the first of many that are on his desk, and I'm confident he'll sign many more. But that's probably some of the good things that we're hopeful for. I can tell you, Victor, we hear from these little retail stores, restaurants, hardware stores, and so many others, property owners, who are saying, please, please, California, please, governor, help protect me. They have not felt that way the past few years. So I think that, combined with a ballot measure on the November ballot that would help address this, people are seeing some hope.
Well, definitely, it's a good news, and you've just witnessed my call with Irvine PD. I've been going around the police stations with my thing, right? Again, it's not about me, but the whole system. and this fun of being a ball in a football game being thrown from here to there. One thing is having the bill on the table and even being signed by the governor. The second thing is probably the execution. And I've been talking to so many police officers, and they just, when they retire, they just leave California. They say there's no law and order in California. So I guess the next thing which we need to address the governor is the execution of these things, and have people in business actually protected in action. So whoever, you know, damaged their business should be taken accountable, and not vice versa. Because what I see on my example or on other people, it's kind of the opposite.
Very true. And I think in past couple of years, we've had a perfect storm, or I should say an imperfect storm, affecting our communities. We've had, frankly, there was almost a disdain for properly funding our law enforcement personnel in our communities. In fact, defunding a lot of our law enforcement, our police officers, our sheriffs. And then on top of that, we had very weak laws. We had laws that were allowing criminals to thumb their nose when they'd walk into a small business and steal, that they weren't held accountable. But I think now we're seeing kind of a combination of the governor, to his credit, has, you know, certainly dedicated hundreds of millions of dollars to both CHP and local law enforcement and district attorneys to be able to properly address this. At least it's an important step. But then on top of that, we have legislation and a ballot measure that is going to, Proposition 36 on this November's ballot, that would collectively, I think, give people more hope, hold these criminals accountable. And then the other thing that's cool about it is giving these people a diversion rehabilitation program. You know, a lot of folks have really been calling for the fact that, you know, we need to do something to help address rehabilitating these people if we can. So it's not just throw away the key, Victor. It's let's, you know, hold them accountable. Let's put them in behind bars if they deserve it. And many do. But let's also find a great pathway where people can at least have an opportunity to rehabilitate themselves. And if so, many of them can have their cases thrown out if they find the right path. That's a good thing.
Right. Absolutely. You know, another good thing, even though it's probably not the most positive topic, is, you know, Oakland, for example, right? Or other cities which struggle a lot because of crime. What I've seen is their citizens, they were uniting into groups, into some sort of local force to protect themselves. So in one way, I see it's like a useful wake-up call, which the community needed. Obviously, it's not, I mean, not a positive thing. I'm not protecting the criminals. Right. But it seems like it was just a good wake-up call for people to unite and start caring for each other. And even in LA, I remember some people from the Russian community, they made a joke online. They created a poster. The Russians will protect your business. It's like a startup idea for fun, you know? So now people had less of division. Hey, you're Latino. Hey, you're from Russia or whatever. They would all come together because, hey, no, it doesn't really matter. So sure, in a way, it does some positive effect as well, although we do struggle with, you know, criminals who are above the law somehow right now.
It's neat, you know, out of the ashes rise the phoenix, right? And I think we've seen that. We saw that with the COVID pandemic, how many communities really gathered around, small businesses gathered around the residents and people in those communities to really help each other out. And I think we're seeing this with this criminal justice issue these days right now. And I'm sorry that you've had to go through what you've gone through, and you're just one of so many, you know, sadly. The mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, who supports the ballot measure, Prop 36, to fix this and other legislation. Her house was broken into, I think, 2 or 3 times. Los Angeles City Mayor Karen Bass, I think, had her car broken into. And so the list goes on, where even our elected leaders, some who might have embraced a little more left of center in the past, are finding like they're sitting ducks. So it's great. But I think, like you said, the best thing we're seeing is people gathering and helping each other out. And also policymakers finally waking up and getting some things done. So I'm hopeful about it. If you ask about good, that's a really good thing that I think many people can hold out hope for positive. And then I'm happy to talk about a couple of another good thing is probably a couple other pieces of bad legislation that would hurt small business that Governor Newsom rightly stopped in its tracks. So happy to talk about those as well.
Let's hear about those. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one has to do with this perhaps well-intentioned idea, but really economically flawed concept that has repeatedly been attempted in Sacramento, and I think probably nationally, and that is this idea for single-payer, universal, government-run healthcare. Sounds sexy. Sounds, why not? Let's do it. Let's put it in there. But I think what we're finding is Governor Newsom took a careful look. There was legislation this year that would have instituted and implemented for the first time our healthcare system in the hands of our state government. But I think what I'm hearing from small business owners and I hear from Californians is, do we really want to put something as critically important as healthcare that affects your parents and grandparents and family and neighbors and coworkers in the hands of bureaucrats and politicians who can play politics with our healthcare? And then of course, on top of that, this legislation this last year would have pegged it, and the independent legislative analyst, Victor, pegged it at upwards of $300 billion per year in costs to Californians. What does that mean? That's on the backs of small businesses in terms of higher payroll taxes, higher taxes for you and me. And as we're trying to crawl out of this hole, number one, do we want to put healthcare in the hands of bureaucrats, the same people who have brought you, with due respect, the EDD and long lines at the DMV? But really, on top of that, do we really have the economic ability to afford paying down a $300 billion price tag? And I think Governor Newsom, other legislators, and frankly, the voices of people speaking out said, no, this is not a good time. Maybe a righteous idea, righteous concept, but terrible economics. So fortunately, that's another good news. The good news is the governor vetoed a very bad news piece of legislation with universal health care.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds promising. I guess I'm one of a lot of business owners who are really putting a lot of hopes on governor's wise choice on approving or vetoing the legislative documents. Which other positive for small businesses documents you foresee governor signing, or maybe negative, not signing?
Yeah. Well, I think right now I will also say there's one bill that the governor did veto that was a similar bill last year that is recently just, he vetoed, that would have extended unemployment insurance benefits to striking workers. And this was introduced in a similar fashion last year, almost exact language. And I think the idea was that if an employee, one or more, chooses to leave their desk, their cubicle, their post, and go strike, that they should, and made that choice on their own, of their own free will, that they should be compensated with unemployment insurance. And again, unemployment, that kind of unemployment insurance could have cost the average small business owner $300 or $400 per employee per day. Or per month. So per month. So, but still, that adds up, Victor. And our state already owes the federal government in the tens of billions of dollars in unemployment and an unpaid unemployment insurance price tag. So we already owe the feds billions of dollars in a federal price tag. This would have just driven it up, but it would have also forced small business owners to pay that price tag down. And I think the governor rightly realized, like, we're already deep in a sea of unemployment red. We don't need to make that a deeper crevice. So we were pleased to see, again, another bad news bill vetoed by the governor. So I think that is something that we're pleased about. Just would have been the price tag for Main Street owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for the consumers, because it drives up the inflation. I think this negative impact on the workforce since COVID, when people just got used to getting free money and doing nothing, just drove our economy and our inflation to a pretty crazy level.
Yeah.
And I've seen this the news about this bill, and the governor not supporting it, thank God, in the
Yeah.
news. And I recalled right away strikes in Hollywood, and how quite a few fellow actors, they were giving their opinion. They're being negative about this decision, obviously because they love striking and getting paid for acting on the street, basically. And I think that should somehow wake up the employees and make them appreciate their jobs. Because from what I see personally, and on my colleagues and my fellow partners, the workforce, the employees don't really appreciate the job, the chance that they have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We just need to be more thoughtful about the economic fallout. So I think that is, as we look at these things, the governor has been a small business owner himself. There are some things that we've seen him do that disappoint. We had higher hopes, but there's things where I think he's really harnessed that understanding as a Main Street operator in doing what he's done. But we just continue to make sure our voice is heard, for sure. So those are a couple of good things. I think a couple. I don't know. I think, frankly, we are. If you're talking about some positive legislation, there's always some things I think that that are put out there that would help expand access to capital for small business owners, give them more opportunity, help with our small business development centers, give small businesses more resources and tools. But unfortunately, even in this election year, I think we've seen just some bad policy. But the good news is that we've seen some of that held back. And, I think those are some things that are positive. The other one that I would also mention is, the governor did veto legislation that would have prohibited an employer from trying to contact their workers after hours. Now, I think we find that there's got to be a reasonable line drawn here, but that you shouldn't be calling an employee at 3 in the morning to ask where a report is. But this would have held liable any employer who would call any worker or email them any moment after they've quote unquote clocked out. And it was called the Right to Disconnect bill. And we opposed it because there are always circumstances, including legislators, who need to contact their staff. They were exempt from the bill, but of course the private sector wasn't. So we saw the governor also realize that, and small business owners and any employer needs to sometimes reach their workers not within the lanes and the lines of their typical 8-hour workday. They shouldn't abuse it, but there certainly they should not be held accountable and liable and have to pay hefty fines if they don't do that. So again, the governor vetoed that, which we were pleased to see. So,
right. We hear so many. We hear a lot of criticism about the governor, his work, and I just want to address all of these people. Before we criticize, just imagine yourself sitting in his chair, having so many issues coming from two sides, and trying to make a right decision. I doubt really that he wants something bad to the state. I don't see a reason, seeing him and his eyes. He's very well spoken. I believe he's extremely well educated. He knows what he's doing. And taking all the politicism, being a Democrat or Republican aside, before we criticize, I guess we just need to imagine how many things he has to deal with such a huge state, the biggest state, the biggest economy. That said, I do have quite a lot of questions coming from our viewers, and we have a lot of really good feedbacks for our episodes with you. And one of the business owners, they're actually in Sacramento. They addressed a few questions to you, if I may. They were asking your advice on how, for a small business, right, how to approach and what is the best way to get investment into small business right now? Maybe angel investors or any other types of investment?
That's a really good question. Well, I think there are some angel investors out there that really, people can tap into, find out how to be involved with small businesses. I think that one area where people can really take a good look at being engaging in that, actually the state treasurer, Fiona Ma, has a really exceptional website, not only on not only on resources that can help a small business crawl out of the hole they've been in terms of what they need to even still bounce back from the pandemic. But I know that website, that she offers a whole multitude of opportunities of ways for people to invest. There's also something that is called the State iBank, the infrastructure bank, that actually helps direct people how to invest in businesses and how to invest in businesses that want to help fix our infrastructure. But that to me is a really cool way for people to get involved. If people are looking for ways to take their money and engage with small business owners, I think, they certainly can come to our organization, the NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business. Let us know which kind of businesses you're looking to support. We can help you identify maybe some investors, but also some small business owners directly, and some small business groups that you could be at restaurants, hospitality, retail. But, there's angel investors out there, and there are ones that actually cater to particular communities, be it the Russian community. I did a podcast not too long ago with a gentleman in Sacramento who specifically dedicates investment opportunities for African-American, small business entrepreneurs. Fascinating what he's been able to do. He's worked over the past with, major investors in Silicon Valley, which I know is where you're at today, but also the artist Prince. He worked with Prince years ago on business stuff. But we have some good people like that who can actually help dedicate. But check in with NFIB, check with us and NFIB.com, or give me a call, and we can help navigate people to help invest, find the right place where they want to put their money, be it a market, a community, a geography, or just a specific interest.
Absolutely. Since you've mentioned NFIB, it's a great interest of mine personally. I think it's a brilliant organization, and we definitely should promote it more and have more and more people coming in and joining, because only as a community we can, survive at the point. During these weeks of the craziness in the legislature, what was NFIB busy with? What is going on now? Maybe you could share with us some news about NFIB currently.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I know we've talked about a couple of the pieces of legislation that we've been actively involved in. One other thing that's really happening right now that's really important for, I think, your viewers and listeners to know is the governor has convened a special session, Victor, on rising fuel prices in California. But we have real concerns about this one. While I've lauded the governor on certain fronts, this one's got a lot of concern. He convened immediately after the legislature finished their regular session at the end of August. He called upon a special legislative session to immediately take place, which is underway now, this end of September, to address rising fuel costs. One of his cornerstone pieces of policy is to require refineries in California to require and mandate that they store a certain amount of fuel, that they would have available for resources for the future. But what again, I don't think he's understanding the economics of that is you're requiring a lot of these refineries to store that fuel and not to readily make it available for you and me, the consumer, and for small businesses. That is unintentionally, and even Democrats have cited, unintentionally going to raise fuel prices even higher. So again, well-intentioned, but one of the cornerstone things that the governor and the legislature is looking at, and that you asked, what is NFIB involved in? We're very, very deeply involved with other small business groups, Hispanic Chamber, the Black Chamber, Cal Asian Chamber, and just local groups saying, please, this is not the right approach. And there are a lot of factors that go into rising fuel costs. But I think pointing the finger at the petroleum industry is kind of short-sighted. And to force these industries to put this in reserve and raise prices for you and me at the pump is also something that was not, I think, what anybody intended. But that's, we're hearing from even economists on the left and the right, is exactly what's going to happen. So that's a big focus for us right now. We're calling upon people to urge the governor to think about small businesses and families and make the best decisions, and don't take us back down the road of higher costs.
Right, absolutely. Since you've mentioned the fuel, it just brought me back to driving back and forth, across California, and I could see quite frequently signs about water. Farmers need water, everyone else. Have you seen any bills regarding supplies of water to, any of the businesses, farming, etc.?
Yeah, we've been part of a California Water Coalition that has been looking at that whole issue. I know there have been a series of bills that have been very focused on water rules, and I think President Trump has even mentioned that he would threaten to hold disaster money if California pushes back on water rules. It's a very political issue, right? Both at the state and federal level. There have been some bills that I think we're looking at right now, but we've been deeply involved in, what can we do to create more water storage for farmers, availability for farmers, and do it responsibly. So we're part of a larger water coalition. Maybe what I can do is come back. I'd love to come back and have maybe a further discussion about just the water and agricultural issues. There's so many issues that hit them on so many levels, but that is such a focal point for us. We need to be focused and we need to be engaged.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great thing that you offered that, because myself and my team, we actually came up with a technical solution on getting clean water, but we'll discuss that in our next episode, or in private, having a cup of coffee. You've mentioned presidential decisions, and also, from taking from the state legislature, we have also federal elections are coming. I think me and a lot of our fellow Americans, we were trying to figure out, emotions aside, politics aside, what are the two candidates offering in terms of business for small and medium businesses. From your experience as a professional politician and also expert in the business, where we can get information on their programs for businesses, their programs for any other issues that they plan to or they promise to fix.
Yeah. Well, I would say this again, to be clear, NFIB, my NFIB hat on, we do not, have not in recent years taken a position on the presidential candidate endorsements or positions. So right. I'm kind of coming at it from John Kabateck and maybe my Kabateck Strategies hat. But I would advise your listeners to certainly, I think that there are some areas where I would say, I think that both candidates candidly could be doing a better job of sharing their positions in general. I think Californians and Americans are just tired of the rhetoric and the politics of just verbiage. They want to hear where they're at on not just economics, but education, healthcare, roads, seniors. And I don't think we hear that. And I don't think it's just the two of them between Trump and Harris. I think many of these politicians get caught in throwing bombs and not really verbal bombs, of course, and not really talking about what's important. So, but going online, I think there are certainly, another great source here in California, not just for candidates at the presidential level, but state level and issues, is the Cal Matters website. And I think it's calmatters.org. It's a publication online, but they do a lot of great research on where candidates stand, You know, there is the California Target book here that helps not just, again, on the federal level, but also certainly candidates and issues here in the state. So I think those types of things like the California Target book, Cal Matters, are just great resources. And then, you know, I think just going to the magic of just going online and checking on their websites, checking on what they're saying and tuning in, just being more dialed into them. I tend to believe, you know, you have a very good objective outlet here, which is so great because you listen to people of all sides. I think C-SPAN is one of those unvarnished, unbiased entities that, you know, my neighbor across the street, who's the head of the State Restaurant Association, that's all he listens to. He has the podcast, he throws it on, he gets in his car, he's got his earbuds, because I think he's tired of hearing the rhetoric that's shaped by many outlets. And I think that's another area your viewers would at least be able to hear more unvarnished, unbiased feedback, just the raw information from these candidates and others.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's what we all need. Everybody's pretty tired of the emotional filling of the whole campaign, and not just emotional, but it's pretty negative. It's, you know, it's a competition of who is more negative about each other, and it's unhealthy for the communities, for the individuals, for the country in general. You know, we have
somebody had joked with me that, you know, they actually have in their mail slot, when the mailman comes around election time, they have the mail slot, they have put a garbage can right underneath the mail slot. So when the mail comes in, it's all the political mailers, it just goes straight into the garbage. Now, I don't know if that's a good way to be an informed voter, but I think there's so much, like you were saying, so much stuff coming that's so biased, that is so attack, and very little light on content, that we deserve better than that. We deserve better than that. And I do think the voter guides that are put out, you know, tend to have good information because those candidates have a chance to make their case. But those are some thoughts I have.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Mr. John, the last question for today, because I know your schedule is also pretty packed. We've talked about legislature, NFIB, upcoming presidential elections. I'll definitely give it a better research on the most legit sources of reading about the programs of both candidates. Kabateck strategies, except for the legislature, which you were highly involved, the whole company, I assume. What is Kabateck strategies dealing with right now, and your plan as the CEO, as the head of the company for Kabateck strategies?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. You know, we were formed 9 years ago in 2015 to really give, and our mantra is to give a voice to those less heard, to provide a voice to those, you know, small businesses, ethnic communities, working families. And there's some stuff we're working on this year. You know, our big focus is just trying to help make sure that California and the nation's economic engine and jobs really, that there's promise for people, that they can move forward and achieve their every dream, and give them a voice. A couple things we're working on this year. We're certainly engaged in some ballot measures that voters could look at. We're certainly involved in the as we were talking about retail theft. There's a yes on Prop 36 that would actually help fix the retail theft problem. It would classify fentanyl as a hard drug. It would give recidivism rehabilitation programs and would hold criminals accountable. We're also involved in the no on Prop 33, which is a rent control measure. For the third time, this has been introduced to try and establish and impose rent control on businesses in California, which has the opposite effect. It would drive up the cost of housing, put people out on the street. Even the governor, as well as the business community, is opposed to Prop 33. So we're very involved in some ballot measures. Another issue I'd love to come back and talk to you about, I know it's on your mind a lot, is AI, artificial intelligence. We've been working with a larger coalition to really make sure policymakers, who, by the way, have introduced upwards of 62 bills this year to try and manage and overregulate AI. Some may be good, but some may be overstepping, is we're trying to make sure policymakers know the benefits of AI. The many ways that it does help with healthcare, advancing healthcare innovations and education, and our decisions that are made with first responders and criminal activity, trying to find crimes and nip those in the bud. So we've been working very deeply with the tech community, but also a larger small business coalition to make sure politicians know about that. And then I think on top of that, we're just right now really engaged in those small business issues every day, just making sure people understand job creation, access to capital, fewer regulations, and giving these people, whether it's Russian community, Armenians, Latinos, or just everyday California small businesses and families, a pathway to economic success. And so we're very involved in a number of efforts to do that.
Well, we're very happy to be able to broadcast the voice of Kabateck Strategies, of NFIB. I'm happy that you mentioned the AI topic, and I'm a big fan of this development in a healthy way. I don't know if you've seen that the governor signed a bill against AI in entertainment business, and a lot of our LA fellows actors, they were striking against it. On the other hand, I know quite a few quite successful influencers. They have created their AI image, they have copyrighted it, and they are making money out of it. The AI image could go on a date for money with a fan, right? So we see actual business people with business mind in the business using AI for their benefit. And we see, I would say a vast majority, a lot of the actors who are striking against it. I don't know if you've heard about the issue and if you've heard about the bill that the governor signed. If you did, what is your take on it?
Well, I think he is looking at a number of other AI bills right now that are on his desk, but I think that the governor is taking a look at, how can we more stringently manage and regulate AI? Yes, I think he was getting, we had everybody from Mark Hamill, who played Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, and a number of others advocating to the governor that he needed to, we need to nip this in the bud for the entertainment industry. We need to make sure that there's jobs created. But the problem is, Victor, I don't think many of us know enough about AI yet to have politicians introduce legislation. The politicians are barely understanding. I was talking to the NFIB leader in Washington, D.C., who oversees all the policy, and he said, if it gives you any indication of how little Congress knows about it, Chuck Schumer, who is in in Congress, who's a big congressional Democrat leader, he still uses a flip phone. So I think many of these folks are still trying to understand what AI is, and I think what the governor would be wise to do would be to convene more of a hearing that involves small businesses, Latinos, Russian American, local elected officials, educators, healthcare professionals, just a lot of people to come and talk about the benefits, but also raise issues of the concerns. Let's have some statewide hearings around the state to let people be heard and talk about it, the benefits and the challenges, before we start throwing legislation into the public square and force people to make a decision.
Absolutely. Can't agree more than that. Mr. John, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your thoughts, for sharing the information. Extremely valuable for all of us. We will keep in touch with you, and we'll be looking forward to our next episodes.
Always enjoy time with you. Thank you so much for letting us talk and sharing some fun discussion, and look forward to coming back if it's meant to be.
It's meant to be, definitely, sir. Thank you.